Super Rugby Power Rankings after round 12. A fair bit of stability I've found this time. A fair few teams that normally lose lost and some winners won, although there were a few draws as well. So I guess that was a bit of an interesting change for Super Rugby. One of them in particular, which I'll speak to specifically. But yeah, let's rank the teams, see who's in form and who is not. Who's not? Well, the Sunwolves are in 15th. It's another loss. Another loss, another loss. I don't know what else to say about the Sunwolves at this point. I mean, that game was just bizarre in how many cards there were. A couple red cards, multiple yellow cards, 12 on 14 at times. So, very strange game. And I don't think you would read either like too much into that for the Sunwolves or the Reds, but it's at the end of the day, it is another loss for the Sunwolves. The Chiefs remain in 14th spot. They did a good job to draw that game. They kind of came back from the dead against the Highlanders team, who are traditionally pretty strong at home. But what they needed to do more than a good job drawing was a good job winning, and that wasn't quite enough. Their season's looking pretty precarious. I've heard more news about injuries in their camp, so yeah, it doesn't seem to be their year, but there's still games to play, just not that many of them. Next, the Waratahs stay the same. It's another loss for them, albeit a loss over in South Africa. They look decent at times, but nope, still not quite there. For last year's top Aussie team, they are looking a touch off the pace. The Israel Folau saga does not help things, I'm sure. But yeah, that continues on as well. Next, my Blues are finally back where they have traditionally been. That is in the bottom row. They are down one spot. Remember that time they won 4 games in a row, including beating a New Zealand team? Yeah, that was a long time ago. And away from home, the Blues are not very good, and they proved that again in Canberra. So it's hard to get a positive result on the table if you can't win pretty much half your games because they're away from home. So not good news for Blues fans. They are finally back home this week, but it's up against the Hurricanes, so no easy job there. Next, and they've had the biggest drop of the week, are the Rebels. Now you'd be saying to yourself, the Rebels are top of the Aussie Conference, what have I got them in 11th for? That seems too low. Well, that was round 12 that we just witnessed, and the last time the Rebels won was round 8, and that was against the Sunwolves. So it's been a long time between drinks for the Rebels. They are not in the best form. They've had some pretty disappointing losses. Yeah, they're not the finished article, despite the fact that occasionally you look at them and think, yeah, they might be able to challenge. Look at that result against the Hurricanes, man. They just didn't show up for the first quarter of the game, and then were playing catch up the whole of the rest of the game. So, yeah, not the best. Next, the Highlanders are actually up 2 spots, despite the fact that they drew, and it wasn't a good draw for them. It was a game lost, I think, like not lost, but drawn, but a win that they lost. So yeah, other teams around them lost, which kind of bumps them up the table a wee bit, namely the Blues, the Rebels. But yeah, Ben Smith's injured for the rest of the season unless they can make the playoffs, is what I last heard. Initially they were kind of talking it down, saying it's just a strain, but it seems a pretty significant strain, 6 to 8 weeks. So how the Highlanders go without him is also a pretty big question, because he is a key man for them as well. Next, the Lions stay the same in 9th. Who knows what you're going to get with them? Not me. They were on the bye, so kind of nothing doing there. The Stormers are there just ahead of them in 8th. Not quite good enough. The Stormers, not quite good enough. At times you think they might be good, and then they're bad. But that's the story of many of the South African Conference teams this year. The Stormers are already doing a bit better than last year with their away record, but their home record still leaves a bit to be desired. So they've got the bye. They rest up from that trip to Argentina. So we'll see how they go when they come back around 14. Next, the Sharks. And the Sharks are up 2 spots. despite having a draw. Now, to be fair, when I work out these power rankings, I usually don't give any credit for a draw. But realistically, this draw that they got was kind of an exceptional draw, if there's such a thing. The Crusaders, I think, were on a 25-game winning run at home. So they've been beaten all comers for quite some time. And the Sharks managed to somehow pull out a draw, coming off a scrappy win over the Waratahs the week before and a couple of really terrible results the week before that. So the shift of Kerr and Bosch to 10 seems to be helping a wee bit. Both the other Dupree brothers, not Robert, the two Lucy's are back fit. So yeah, I guess we will see what Sharks team turns up. They're away from home again this week, so that bodes well for them. Next, the Brumbies. Not a very sexy team. The Brumbies, they beat my Blues at the weekend. It was ugly, but it was very effective. And I take nothing away from them for that. I mean, if you've got a weapon that's as good as the Brumbies got and their maul and their scrum was doing well as well, you can't criticise them for it. As much as I'm tempted to, I mean, if a team has got a fantastic winger that just busts tackles like crazy, like the Waratahs were using... what's his name? It's gone from my head completely. But, Nairavoro. They were using him last year just as a battering ram, and they would just feed him the ball. Nobody criticises a team for doing that kind of thing. The Brumbies get a bit of stick, including me when I was watching the game, but not fair, because they've got a weapon, they used it, and if they can keep doing that against teams, they will keep rising. But if they find teams who are better able to stop the rolling maul than the Blues, then I'm not sure what else they'll have to offer. We will see. Brumbies are up. I credit them. 3 from 4 wins, man. The last 4 games, 3 wins. The Blues look at that with envy. Next. Oh. Wrong team. The Reds. The Reds are in 5th. They're also 3 out of their last 4 as wins. But that last win, and it was against the Sunwolves, it was at home, they had extra men, they should have done better than they did. So they don't rise any spot tier, they stay in 5th despite the fact they're on a decent little recent set of performances. That wasn't a convincing performance, so not taking anything away from them, but not kind of giving too much extra belief into what they're doing after that one. Next is the Bulls, here we go. Not quite top row for the Bulls despite a decent win. Again, for them, it wasn't a slick and all-out performance from them. None of the teams really this week, I'm trying to think back, any of them really played a full 80 minutes. There were a lot of teams that looked good in patches, but nobody really set the world on fire. So the Bulls, you still feel like they could be prone to a pretty poor result, but they're top of the log in South Africa, so may that continue. May Dwayne Vermeulen keep getting line breaks and all that jazz. Next is the Jaguares, who are still stable in 3rd spot. They have not been blowing teams out of the park, but they have got 4 wins in a row now, so credit to them for that. They still have to do their tour of Australia and New Zealand, so that will be a true test for them. Last year they did a perfect job of that, but whether they can replicate that this year is a big question, so that will have a big bearing on how that South African conference plays out. If they go and don't do a good job, the teams who have already toured, I think 3 of them already have, we'll definitely catch up that department. Next, the Hurricanes are still in 2nd, no changes there. Another team who look like world beaters at times and then look decidedly ordinary. So the Hurricanes can't also put it together for 80. They had a blistering start in their game against the Rebels and then I think scored 3 points for the rest of the game. So they played 1 really good quarter and then a fair bit of average stuff. So you still feel like they are a yard off the pace from the Crusaders. Speaking of the Crusaders, who are at number 1, even they looked mortal in this week's game. They were not slick. They had a lot of the ball, but those South African forwards, the Sharks guys, were monstering them at times. Not just the forwards, some of the backs as well. So, they don't look that invulnerable. I mean, they still look the best team in Super Rugby, I think, pretty comfortably. But, there's still a chance. If you can get the Crusaders on an off day, like they kind of had there, and the Sharks did a good job of encouraging them to have an off day, played their own game. And if the Sharks had just been a bit sharper, so if any team can do that, then you might be able to get a win against the Crusaders. You've got to disrupt what they're doing and do what you do very, very well, because nothing less is going to beat the best. So, those are the power rankings for this week. How many is it? 2 New Zealand teams in the bottom. None of the South African teams are in the bottom or the top. Jaguares is a South African Conference team in the top row, but everyone else is in the middle from South Africa. A good mix of Australia towards the top-ish and bottom, and New Zealand right at the top, and a couple in the bottom as well. So an interesting mix. It has been an interesting year of Super Rugby thus far. You guys let me know your thoughts on the rankings. How do you think these teams are going to go in this coming round? And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.